All right. I see Brian Burke, my buddy Brian Burke, got the axe. After 2 years, him and Ronnie Hextall, 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
here's a question though I got to ask you, Dad. So you're about 6 weeks away from the draft, right?
yeah.
And so they get rid of Burke and they get rid of Hextall. They get rid of their GMs. And now they're going to go into the draft. They're going to get a guy that's never probably seen the guys they're going to draft. They're going to go after the scouts. And if Pittsburgh won 4 more games, they would have been in the playoffs and they wouldn't have got rid of him. So
I have no idea. I think that's a corporation that got rid of them.
I can remember. Can I tell my story about Ronnie Hextall when he was a little boy in Rochester?
Yeah, go ahead.
It was like, I can remember Tim. His dad was Brian, right?
Brian,
and his
yeah.
uncle was Dennis Hextall, who we talked about
Right,
last
right,
week, right?
yeah.
That you got in a fight with and all that. So in Rochester, his wife or his mother came over and had coffee with Mom, and you and Ronnie Hextall went down and played stick hockey down in the basement.
Yep.
And I remember, and you know, it's funny when kids get together, there's always no doubt who's going to be in goal and who's going to take the shots, right? It's like when Max, Domi, and Dell, my son, used to play. There was no question who was going to go in net and who was going to take the shots, right?
Yeah.
So Ron's in net downstairs playing, and the crying and the carrying on and the complaining and him. It was just amazing listening to him. And he's not playing fair. He's doing this, and they were always.
He grew up like that
And he
too.
grew up like that. So I remember Mom and I were watching the game one time. He was what? He was a goalie for what? Philly? Philly. And he was always, do you remember him? He was always whining to the referees and the linesmen about something. And Mom looked at me and said, he hasn't changed a bit, has he?
And we never came to blows, which was kind of for Hextall, because how many fights did you see? Remember he went after Chelios? Remember he went after Felix Potvin?
Oh, I remember he went after Chelios on the corner there.
Right, yeah.
He was always going for the goal, too. I remember he was one of those goalies that were always shooting to score a goal in the open net.
He thought he tried to be the first one. But I remember him going after Chelios. That was pretty good.
Yeah, that was
then Chelios gave me his only hat, like cap.
Because that was in the finals, I think, or they were in the playoffs.
Yeah. And I give it McLean to put in his bag, so he'd give it to me later. He gave it away.
So you gave away your Stanley Cup hat, the Montreal Canadiens Stanley Cup hat.
Yeah, he gave it away. And Dallas Aikens, he got fired too. So 3 guys.
Peter Laviolette, Washington, got fired. He got let go.
Well, he didn't really get fired. He got fired. I guess he did get fired. But I like it when they say they come to agreement. They both come to an agreement.
Is that code?
Well, they talked to him before. At the end of the season, you're going to be let go. And so they say they come to agreement. That I like that better.
Yes, I could see that.
Not me. They always said they'd love to fire me. Yeah, so that's it.
So we're going to the playoffs, Dad. This is the real season now, right?
Believe me when I tell you, nobody will ever remember that Boston had so many wins, and it doesn't make.
Yeah,
it.
they set a record for the most wins.
Yeah.
But you got to remember that they set the record, but the team they beat, Montreal, they had ties. So Boston had 5 overtime wins, I think. So those would have been ties, so they wouldn't have beat the record.
But, Dad, can I ask you a question? I mean, you can really see a difference with the teams stepping it up for the playoffs and all that. I can remember when I was watching the Bruins. The Bruins really didn't change when you were coaching them. I really didn't see them stepping it up anymore for the playoffs from the regular season.
It's the funny thing is that I think it's kind of unfair at home. Some teams do it. They rest their stars, and you pay a lot of money for tickets for the games now, and you go there expecting to see the stars, and they don't play.
There have been games now that don't mean anything, and everyone's got their spot, and yet they play these games that mean nothing, whoever wins or loses, and the fans still pay the same amount of money. Didn't the Leafs have a couple of those games that didn't mean anything?
I don't think the Leafs. I think the Leafs played their stars at home.
The only time they rested Marner once at home, and then they rested him in Tampa.
Yeah,
which I didn't like. was like, oh, we can't play Marner and we can't play Matthews because they might hurt us.
I never believed in that. I believed they should go down, fix their sticks in the morning, go for the morning skate, and that's why you never saw the difference.
Well, you weren't even allowed to rest your stars even in exhibition game. You got in trouble.
They wanted them to play because they only play 8 games. That's all they can play. That's in the rule books. So now I don't know what happened, but Park and a few other guys who were the stars had played their 8 games, and they were going into Montreal. So the Montreal, and he came to me. I remember this. He came to me, and
who came? Who?
Harry, and he says you can get them to play. So I says okay, we'll play, but we'll get some money off them for a party.
You have leverage.
Do we get an extra $500 for a party?
Okay, Dad. So let's go over some of the playoffs. Who you want to talk about first?
I want to talk about Avalanche and the Wild. Now Avalanche is favored to win, and they won the series 2-1. This will be a rough series. This will really be a rough series. But I'm taking the Avalanche to beat the Wild.
Yeah. So if you look at that, like in the last 10 games, the Avs only lost 1, and Minnesota is just a little bit above 500. Is that a big thing for you? Like, who's kind of on a roll at the end of the season?
Yeah, you can tell going into the thing that they're thinking of the playoffs. When they're 8-1, they're thinking of the playoffs coming up. So I'm picking the Avalanche to win over the Wild. Now, the next one I think we should talk about is Dallas and Seattle. Now, Dallas is favored to win, and I'm picking Dallas. I seem to be picking all the favorites to win. They won the series 3-0, and they'll be good to just get in the playoffs.
Do you think they'll just be happy to be in the playoffs?
I think they're happy to be in the playoffs. My pick is Dallas, and Seattle is 11-7-2 in the last 20 games, and the last 10 they were pretty good, 5-3-2. You just feel if you're ready or not. And I remember one time we had a bye, and I did everything to try to keep them. I paid $50 a game if you lost, and didn't do any good. Took a while to get back in the groove again. Okay, the next one we go to is...
before we go, I don't know, people don't care what I think, but my dark horse is I'm picking Dallas to win the Cup.
Well,
they got a good goalie.
Yeah.
They are a big team.
Yeah, they are a big team.
They're physical. They got a good coach. They got a big defense that can play rough. I'm
hoping they win too, so Max gets a Stanley Cup ring.
Yeah, Max
Tommy.
Yeah, that's right. Wouldn't that be nice to see a ring?
Yeah. Anyhow, I know I want to talk about the Rangers and the Devils. Now the Rangers have the pretty good goaltender. That's Shizerkson. How do you say it?
Shizerkson. Something like that.
Rangers and the Devils. I will pick the Devils. And
their goaltender Shizerkson he's pretty good. This is what the NHL wanted, right?
There must be a good rivalry there, right, between those two.
Well, there is a good rivalry.
Yeah, but it'll be better now. This is what the NHL couldn't have been any happier that these two teams met.
Kane is sort of a disappointment. He only had 5 goals, 19 games or 20 games or something?
Yeah.
He was sort of
But here's the thing, though. Like in the playoffs, he just has to play one good game.
Yeah, and let's say he's saving himself for the playoffs. So Rangers and the Devils, I'm taking the Devils.
I'm going to take the Rangers on that.
Hurricanes and the Islanders. Now here's I
hate to say it, but this is going to be a snooze fest. The Hurricanes give up the least amount of shots in the league, and the Rangers and the Islanders, I should say, have the least amount of shots on net. So this is going to be a bit of a snooze fest, I think.
Well, I'm still picking the Hurricanes on this one, even though they are a bunch of jerks.
Well, they wished you happy birthday.
Yeah, they did.
They did.
Did you ever get a free?
No, the PR guy must.
Did you ever get a free T-shirt from them?
No, I never got a free shirt.
You never. All the money you made for that team, that their marketing thing of you calling them jerks, and you didn't even get a free T-shirt.
I never got a Pavel Bure. Remember when he kicked the feet from under?
He did Weasel Power.
Weasel Power. I never got one of them either. But
yeah, so this Hurricanes Islanders, I think the Hurricanes are going to have a breeze.
It'll be a low-scoring game.
Yeah, that's it. Take the under.
And the Boston and Florida. Naturally, I'm taking Boston. Boston. just to read the record, I wrote a few things down here. In the last 10 games, Boston was 9-1. Florida was 6-3-1, which is not bad. That's what put them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They won.
Yep.
Florida has a must-win situation in the last month of the season. Boston has been cruising all year.
Yeah.
Just taking it easy.
Well, you got to say, Florida's battle hardened. They've had to win almost every game for the last month.
Yeah, but Boston's got that. They've got those two good goalies,
Yeah.
Linus Ullmark, and 40 wins, 6 losses, and he's going against them. And he has an average of under 2.
Okay, Dad. So I'm going to ask you a question with Florida. Brovsky's getting the big getting the big dough, right? He's the goalie. He's making $8 million a year or something like that. He's let them down every year in the playoffs. He's let them down, and this Lion's been playing pretty good the last half of the season.
Yeah, he has.
What do you do?
I'm trying to win. That's what I'm trying to do. If I win, I stay. If I lose, I go.
So would you start Brovsky in the first game, and if they lose, come back with Lion?
No, I go after Lion right off the bat and put my job on the line. And I would play Lion if he's the best goaltender. He's the best goaltender.
If I'm picking an upset, this is my upset. I'm picking because I just think last year Florida had the best record in the league. They scraped by in the playoffs. They got 2 pretty good goalies. They got a lot of firepower. And Boston really hasn't slumped this year, have they?
Not one. Well, they had that 4. They had 4 games.
4 games. That's not a slump.
I'm picking the Leafs.
Leafs versus Tampa.
Yeah, and Tampa. Although they got the. Well, I think he's the best goaltender. Valetsky.
Yeah.
Whatever they call him, but he is the best goaltender. I think. I'm still taking Toronto. No way that I am going to bet against Toronto Maple Leafs.
What do they say the definition of insanity is? Saying the same thing over and over again and thinking it's going to be different?
Well, I'm like the fans.
Well, you're hoping, but this is the question. You're hoping they win.
No,
but do you think they're going to win?
I'm putting my money on the Leafs.
So, okay, Samsonov, will be starting in goal for the Leafs. He's only played 5 playoff games.
Well, doesn't matter. He played good during the season.
Do you think that makes a difference?
You think of Dryden? He hardly played at all.
Yeah,
and he put out the Boston Bruins, and he was playing college hockey or something, and he put out the Boston Bruins.
Yeah. Now the other thing too is Tampa. They've won 2 Stanley Cups and been in the finals. So they've played a lot of hockey in 3 years.
A lot of hockey.
Like, you look at, if you include like preseason games, like Hedman's played over 300 games. Stamkos is close to 300 games. Vasilevsky's close to over 200 games. Do they start to wear down?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. That they lose that little something, a little desire or something. I don't know what it is. But I'm still picking the Leafs. I'm like the Toronto Maple Leafs fans. I'll stick with the Leafs right to the very end.
But you don't think that this is the attitude that I have with the Leafs, which might not be good, is that they just seem to be a team that's happy to make the playoffs.
They're not happy this year just to make
Yeah, okay.
No,
or the management. Let's just say the management. Oh, well, we did our job. We made the playoffs.
No.
So it will be
they have to get by that first round
to make the management look good.
Yeah, and they didn't get with Boston.
So do you think there'll be any changes to the management if they don't make it past the first round?
Well, we'll see.
I'm asking you. You're the expert. Do you think there'll be any changes?
Oh, yeah. If they don't get by the first round, there'll be changes. I don't know what the changes will be, but there'll be.
And so there should be, right?
I'm betting Dubas is gone after this year anyway. I think he's not going to sign. He's going to go to another club. I think he's got too much. There's too much going on with Matthews. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Dubas has got rid of all his picks. Their backs against the wall cap wise. They're not going to be able to go any higher. Give Matthews any more money, and I just think Dubas says,
well, I
it's
disagree,
a scorched earth policy, I'm leaving.
I think he just got a new house in Lorne Park, and I think that once you get a nice house in Lorne Park, you want to stay there. So I can't see him moving.
Anyway, I do hope the Leafs win. I like to see the city. They need, the bars and that need it.
Yeah.
Believe me, they'll get by the first round.
So, Dad and Cindy, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Spreads.ca. They're a Canadian-owned online casino and sportsbook. And if you sign up now and use the promo GRAPES, They'll match your deposit up to $500. You get 10 spins on the big wheel for some big dough. And your first sports bet, they'll spot you $25. So the playoffs are coming. There's a lot. And Dad, Spreads has Vegas big favorites over the Jets. So who do you think, Jets and Knights?
Well, I'm going to pick the Knights on this one. Jets haven't beaten the Vegas this year, 2 losses and 1 overtime. Last 20 games, Vegas was 14-3-3, and the last 10 they were 6-1. So they're not flying high. Last 20 games, Jets are 11-8-1, and the last 10 they were 6-4.
So, Dad, let me ask you again. Knights haven't had a tough game, or they haven't need to win in a long time, and the Jets have been they've been fighting in and out of the playoffs for the last 6 weeks.
They're in the playoff mode.
And do you think Hellebuck plays too many games? He's 6. Well, you got to get into the playoffs. I guess he doesn't. But,
well, you have to play him because if you don't play him, you don't make the playoffs. Then he wouldn't play too many games.
But he played 64 games.
Yeah, that's a lot of games.
That's a lot of hockey.
That's a lot of hockey for sure.
So the last one, all our Edmonton fans want to know. This, I think, will be the best series: the Oilers and the Kings.
Stay up and watch this one. Spreads has the Oilers a big favorite. I'm picking the Oilers, naturally. Over the last 20 games, the Oilers are 17-2-1. And in the last 10 games, they're 9-0-1. Boy, that's pretty good.
Yeah, they've been really on a roll.
LA has played Oilers through tough all season, though. They played them tough all season. I've watched all the games.
Split the series 2-2.
Yeah, they split the series. Well, Scott Skinner, who's from Edmonton, will start in goal, but he's only had 11 American Hockey League playoff games. But I like him, and he's going to play good in the playoffs, we hope.
Right. So if you're LA Kings, what do you say? How are you going to check McDavid? What do you say?
I don't know how you check him. You stick with him, I guess. That's the only thing you can do. And give him a...
they don't have, it's funny, they don't have a guy shadowing them.
No, they don't have a guy going with them all the time. Maybe that's...
They can't keep up with them, though. But.
No, who could keep up with him? He's the best player in the world. There is no doubt about it. He's the best player in the world.
Imagine if Toronto and Edmonton get into the finals. And that it very well could be. I mean, you look, who's going to beat Edmonton in out of the West? And you look, who could beat Toronto? Could beat anybody out of the East. So that would be something. NHL would just die. They would just say, flip a coin. And
Bedard, he's going to end up in Anaheim. Never to be heard of again.
Well, the NHL, they'd like him to go to Chicago. Chicago's got the second best chances of getting him.
And most people watch Chicago because, they're on a little late. But
so, Dad, a lot of people don't like the playoff setup. They like it to go 1 through 16.
I've always said that.
So if they went 1 through 16 in the league, this would be the matchups.
Okay.
It would be Boston Islanders, Carolina Flames. So Calgary would be if they went 1 through 16 in the league, Calgary would be in the playoffs.
Yeah. And they'd be tough.
Devils, Jets, Vegas, Tampa, Leafs, Seattle, Oilers, Mini, Stars, Kings, Rangers, Avalanche. So, the whole thing is Calgary, it's tough. They're out of the playoffs.
There's no weak sisters anymore in the National Hockey League. Everybody's got a pretty good team. It used to be before, you go into some of those teams before, they'd be out of the playoffs by Christmas.
Yeah.
I like the way the league is now. I like them right down to the wire.
So Calgary's out of the playoff. It's out of the playoffs, and Sutter's got 2 years left on his contract. Well, and again, we said they were second in the league for the most shots, averaging most shots on net per game, and they were second in the league for the least amount of shots averaged per game.
So that tells you one thing where the problem is.
Right. So Markstrom's save percentage is under 9, and his goals against is close to 3. So that's the problem.
Remember, he played the one good game. Well, I shouldn't say he played the one good game, but he played the one good game and they won.
In Winnipeg, yeah.
Yeah, and so he can play.
He stunk the joint out in Vancouver.
Yeah. I don't know. I just don't understand the guy. Anyhow, Calgary's got a good club and they'll make the playoffs next year. They better get a goaltender next year.
Okay, Dad, so one last question. If you had to pick an upset, who would it be?
Let me just put it this way to you. I would not bet a lot of money against the Kings. They got to look like they got a team that can turn it on, and I just wouldn't play against the Kings.